And welcome back to the Big Red B. Schneid Show. We got a lot to cover from all Nebraska sports today. We haven't even spoken since John Cook's retirement. The Huskers picked up another transfer on the offensive line we were talking about last week. New special teams coordinator. Baseball and softball is about to start up, and Nebraska men's basketball is still alive. What would you all do today, Jim?
Home, hauled some stuff to the dump. That's about it this morning.
Oh, it didn't sound like you put in a hot water heater.
And you got to help a neighbor out.
Anyways, be
Wanted
sure
wanted
to,
$1,000.
yeah. Um, be sure to shoot us a comment, subscribe to the channel. We'd like to answer some questions if you got any. But first of all, John Cook, a bit of a shock. We knew it was coming, but we wasn't expecting it this early. He announced his retirement.
Legend, and I can't say he was a program builder, but he certainly um, put an asterisk on women's athletic, especially volleyball.
Yeah, he had four national championships, 12 Final Four appearances, and 14 conference championships. I'd say probably the greatest college volleyball coach of all time.
John Cook's a coach at I think John Cook would be successful coaching anything.
When we were talking about it on the phone after the announcement came out, and what I took from it is what John Cook did at Nebraska was he had, you said to me, you said that he gave Nebraska something to be proud of because the football program declined, and Nebraska was a good volleyball program when he took over, but it wasn't a dynasty, what it is now, and
Look
the
at
only
his attendance.
continuity.
Oh, look at the attendance. I mean, they went from the Coliseum, which John wasn't really that hot when he found out that they were going to move him from the Coliseum, and but they made a big effort to make Devaney something special for women's volleyball. I mean, you look inside there, that is a class act arena.
And Dannon, after Cook's press conference, was talking about they're going to probably expand it to 10,000 seats. Right now, it holds about 8,500.
Looks like it.
But um, as a season ticket holder, do you think that they should expand to Venny, or do you think that they should just move it to Pinnacle Bank? Because they could probably get 15,000 every game.
Devaney is kind of the volleyball team's arena. So,
No, and I understand that. They are going to play a tournament at Devaney to open up the season this year. Or not Devaney, Pinnacle Bank.
right.
But um, yeah, Cook, I mean, build a statue. That's what I say.
I if you're anybody in if you know anything about women's sports, John Cook already has a statue.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And he's still going to be involved with the athletic department. He has a role, they
He said
announced.
he'd coach linebackers if they needed him.
Yeah. They might at some point, you never know. Although I
Oh yeah,
won't. But then Nebraska, shortly after the announcement of John Cook, they already had it in place for former player and assistant of John Cook, Dani Busboom Kelly, to come in from Cortland, Nebraska. She was at Louisville. She's made it to two national championships there, finished runner-up both times.
quite a resume that she has by herself. So
82% win percentage for Busboom Kelly. Guess what John Cook's was?
like 83.
Yep. So right on the same trajectory there. And as a player from 2003 to 2006, she won a national championship. And then when she was an assistant, they won it in 2015.
And she knows Nebraska.
You can't
She's very
replace you can't replace John Cook, but you got someone that knows what to do.
yeah. Can you replace Tom Osborne? No.
You,
Tom
you
Osborne didn't. Tom Osborne didn't replace Bob Devaney.
know. And you want to talk about the similarities of John Cook retiring is similar to Tom Osborne, but the difference with Frank Solich being the successor and Busboom Kelly, well, Busboom Kelly went to Louisville and did it somewhere else, or it's tougher to do that.
Yeah, John did something very similar. That's kind of with his daughter, who ended up her career playing at Nebraska, but he told her that she needed to go play someplace else for a while. And she did. She went to Stanford, and then came back and finished her last 2 years in Nebraska.
I actually did not know that.
That's true.
About what time frame was that? Or
Oh golly, that's got to be 7, 8 years ago, maybe.
really?
Yes.
I did not know that at all.
So,
I guess I really wasn't watching that much Husker volleyball about 10 years ago, but
well, it's kind of seems to me that's kind of John's MO is to send him out, make him fly someplace else, and you can come back, but you got to fly on your own. And this Miss Kelly certainly has.
yeah, I think they definitely can go. I think a national championship this year is definitely on the table, but it's going to be a new era.
Yes, it is. So
And all
looking
the
forward.
players are staying. Nobody's hitting the portal.
So
But anyway, on to our next headline. Mike Ekeler, former Nebraska linebacker coach from David City, Nebraska, has been named the special teams coordinator. He was at Tennessee this past season, coaching their special teams.
I like the hire. I think it's a good move. I do notice that it seems like Matt doesn't. Coach Rule does not like to make changes until he's absolutely forced to. And I think that would be if I was going to pick on Coach Rule, that would probably be the biggest flaw I've seen. So
Yeah, and from my understanding, Eckler's contract didn't expire till the end of January. So that might have been another reason they waited to announce it now, or probably was, and they were in talks, but now it's official. He played at Kansas State in the 90s. Even though he's from David City, but he from Nebraska in 2008, 2010, you think about the linebackers Nebraska had, they had recruited Will Compton, Levante David. So there's good resume on that from Eckler's point of view. And Tennessee, you weren't seeing Tennessee getting punts blocked or extra points blocked near as much as Nebraska.
and by the way, he coached with Bo Pelini, so he's able to handle some wild rides.
Well, just look at this picture. Let's see, where's he at? This is his profile picture on X.
Yeah,
Coaching with blood on his face.
looks a little intense.
But you think about Nebraska special teams. I mean, I was at Matt Rule's press conference on Saturday, and he was talking. I mean, blatantly obvious. He said our issues were was a long snapper, and he said we have two excellent kickers now. Getting Tristan Alvano healthy, I think John Hull, that's his position to lose now, though. After what we saw from Hull last year, and then they got the oh gosh, I'm trying to think where he transferred from, but the long snapper coming in. For, and then you got Jack McAllister, the punter coming in from Washington. Sam Cook's boy being the punter. Now I just want to see about kick returning and punt return. Can they get a guy in there that can consistently get 10 yards on a punt return and get it out to the 30-yard line when he fields
All
a kick?
stepping out on the two.
Yeah, that too. No pun intended, but I mean, Andrew Marshall was asked to rule if he thought he could be a returner, and he said we have several guys on there that can return, but until proven otherwise, I I'll wait and see with that stuff on the special teams.
Corey has definitely got to be in the mix.
And I think he will, but then again, it's a lot to be a kick returner and a punt returner both.
Yeah.
The last good returner Nebraska had was J.D. Spielman,
Yes.
and remember DeBornay Pearsonell, he was a lead under Bo Pelini. Now you look at what Mike Ekeler has done at Tennessee and then his linebackers at Nebraska. I think you're going to see a lot better physicality on special teams where your returners are hitting the hole hard and not trying to dance around and go outside. Because that's all returns in football. You can't go lateral. You got to go vertical
Right.
to start out. The first 5 yards you got to go forward. You rarely ever see a return where the guy just runs the outside because I mean you got your gunners coming down, If they can get there and then cut out, I think that you'll be
And now we
positioned
don't have
well.
a John Rodgers or a Greg Pruitt. He's not
No,
bringing.
but I think about as good as you can get. I know a lot of people wanted Bill Bush, who was under Frost's staff and Callahan's staff, but doesn't appear that him and Matt Rule really have a connection at all.
I just
But
soon cut the ties with anybody that had it on Frost.
yeah, well, anyway, though, on to our next topic. Rocco Spindler officially commits to Nebraska, starting guard for Notre Dame. Didn't start the first 3 games, but started the rest of the season. And listen to this. And the whole season, he didn't allow a sack. 400 and I believe 2 pass drops he took, didn't allow a sack.
Amazing, and you kind of wonder why leave. I mean, you just played for a national championship. Why would you run off on your senior year? I don't get it.
Well, he probably wasn't guaranteed a starting role on the team, and he wanted to get more money.
Different era. I don't have to understand it.
Nebraska probably is giving him, I'd say he's making at least $800,000 to be a Husker. Yeah, I think he's making about 800,000. But
Realize
you,
it.
well, it was between, he first visited Indiana, and then he came to Lincoln last Tuesday. And then he was supposed to go visit Michigan and didn't. And then later on in the week, he went and visited Pittsburgh and Virginia. And it was crystal balled on Friday that he was going to be going to Virginia. And then Sunday rolls around and he signs Nebraska. So what I assume is that Nebraska opened up or offered to give me more money than what they already had.
It looks like a bidding game to me.
But now you look at the offensive line, they got about 8 to 10 guys that can play. And you get to the fourth quarter, well, with being able to rotate your guys in the second and third quarter, maybe here and there, some of these guys, the opposing team might have 50 snaps for them going in the fourth quarter, while Nebraska's have about 40 to maybe even less.
From what I hear, Teddy's really planning on coming back and playing this year, trying it again. And Corcoran is on schedule to be playing some ball too.
Borkman's one I'd worry about because Rule said on Saturday that he had to have another, or he had just had to have surgery on that hamstring a couple weeks ago that kept him out throughout the whole year after the Illinois game. But you're not going to have Gatula or Latovsky in the spring. So I still think the young guys are going to have a big chance to make an impact.
Right.
I mean, they got the
It's
Preston
going to be hard to
Tuma.
replace Ben Scott.
What's that?
It's going to be hard to replace Ben Scott. Ben Scott was kind of the leader of that offense.
Yeah, I know he was for sure. And then, but I still think that the offensive line's in a lot better place than they were going in the last year.
I would agree.
Also, another topic we got to cover. Ty Robinson plays in the Senior Bowl along with Thomas Fidone and Tommy Hill. And then Nash Hutmacher and Isaiah Nair played in the East-West Shrine Bowl. Nash made a couple plays. I saw him drop in coverage and make a tackle. And then
Why?
Ty Robinson, though, when I was watching him in the Senior Bowl, they were even talking about it. There were several times where he was blowing through. One play, he tackled the running back for at least a 3 yard loss. And there was a couple times I was watching and just offensive lineman just has his jersey up like that, and they didn't call it. But I think Ty Robinson, all he did was benefit himself. And it sounds like Thomas Fidone had one hell of a week down in Mobile.
Fedoni was a kind of a disappointment this last year. I think there's a lot of talent there, but something didn't gel.
Of the players who played in these All-Star games, who do you think gets drafted? Obviously, we know Ty is going to be drafted. But do you think that anybody else, maybe Thomas, maybe Nash?
I think Nash will be a late round draft pick.
You think Nash will be a late round?
Yeah, I think he'll be a sixth or seventh round.
I would. Thomas might actually get drafted. It'd
Well,
be
the
really
athletic
late.
ability is there, and the size is there.
And Tommy Hill might as well, but it sounded like he struggled down at the Senior Bowl a little bit. I think his injury's still kind of bothering him.
I mean, you look at the tight end position of the folks that play on Sunday. The tight end position has been kind of hallmark the past few years, and it has become a it's more than just a blocker.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I mean, pass catching tight ends is that's what it's became now. You even see it. That's why Heinrich Haarberg's playing.
Oh, did you see? By the way, speaking of athletes, did you see the windmill dunk he did when he won the dunk
I
contest?
was there. I was there. Yeah, they were trying to do one. Dylan was at mid-court and he threw a football and tried to have Heinrich dunk it. That didn't work. But then Heinrich said, screw it, and then went out there and dribbled and threw it off the backboard. And I, the athleticism he brings is incredible.
Right.
Emmett Johnson had a reverse dunk off the backboard. And then Desan McCullough had a pretty nice dunk as well, the Oklahoma transfer. Rule was talking about Desan on Saturday, and he said, Desan's one of those kind of guys with this hybrid defense we play because he's played edge, safety, and linebacker. He can play in the 3-3-5. He can play in a 3-4, and he can go down on four down in the pass rush and not have to take him off the field.
I think we got a lot more utility players this year that are pretty ambidextrous, I should say.
Yeah. On to my next topic, though. Let's talk about spring game. Some people are blowing stuff out of proportion. It doesn't sound like it's going to be televised and it's not going to be a game. They're probably just going to have an event to, make some money, keep the tradition. Um, but Matt Rule pointed out a good point, and I never really thought of it this way too much. Was everybody was speculating it's just due to injuries? That's not the main reason. Yeah, your players can get hurt, but they can get hurt in practice, and they're not really beating the hell out of each other in the spring game anyway. But the tampering he was talking about last year, players were going the rules saying, "Yeah, my the coaches are hitting me up to hit the portal."
Now the spring game, he makes a lot of sense in that he doesn't want to give other teams a lot of film. I think that's his biggest concern.
Well, and it makes sense, especially in the world of college football today. Why would you give a team 4 months to prepare for you with new players from that are transferred?
Right.
Especially when you have a specific role you want to do that another team didn't utilize him that way. As a Desan McCullough, do they really want to show him on TV lining up off the edge and then dropping in coverage as a rover? I really don't think you want to show that for Cincinnati to have 4 months saying, okay, now we know what this technique is. But I mean, there ain't too much to really cover on the spring game. It's gonna be an event that they'll have probably.
I've never been to one of those.
You've never been to a spring game?
No, doesn't interest me.
You
It's
you
like
can
going
get
to a
some out of
practice.
it, but you get to see some young guys playing and
Well,
find out who can maybe make some plays. But anyway, that's pretty much all I have for football today. But I do want to talk about the men's basketball team. They beat Illinois on Thursday during when they played Illinois, and Nebraska kind of got lucky. Now, don't get me wrong, Illinois is a great team, but Illinois shot, I believe, 10 of 40 from three. And Nebraska led the entire game, but Illinois ties it up to go to overtime. And then Bryce Williams takes over and they get away with it.
talk about a bunch of giant killers. Like from what I understand, they beat four teams in the top 10 this year,
Top
which
25.
top 25. Yeah, excuse me. But that's kind of a record.
Yeah. Oh, and then last night when they played Oregon, you got to take a road victory for Nebraska on the road is impressive. But they shoot 4 of 23 from the 3-point line. But overall, they shot 26 of 51. So they were hitting a lot of twos. And Jawan Gary and Bryce Williams, their two best players, stepped up 23 from Jawan, 27 from Bryce. And then Raleigh Worcester off the bench, he had 11 points. So they found a way.
He looks like they killed it on the foul line too.
He looks like he killed it.
No, they did very well from the foul line too.
They did. At the end, they
Very
had to
good.
hit some free throws and they found a way. And now Nebraska's right back in the discussion of potentially making the NCAA tournament. They're still going to have to win some games. They play on Wednesday night at 9:30 against Washington, but they should be able to win that game and then they return home on Super Bowl Sunday to play Ohio State. But
I personally kind of have a little bit of a grudge against Oregon anyway, um, so I think it was good to go out there and steal one on their home court.
what's your personal grudge?
Kind of got a nephew that's playing for Minnesota this year.
Oh, Brennan. Yeah.
Yes,
He transferred from Oregon.
from Oregon. He couldn't
And
get any playing time.
he played a little bit, but he wasn't in the starting rotation. But no, I think Nebraska, if they can win, I believe they have, is it 10 or 9 games left in the conference? If they can win at 5 to 6 of them, they should be sitting well.
That's good. That's good. And I Holberg, I don't know. What do you think of his coaching style? I think he was kind of a giant killer last year too.
Yeah, I think that if Hoiberg can win the games that he should for the remainder of the season, that's going to put Nebraska about where they were seeded wise last year. Now the question is, can you go into a hostile environment and win when it really matters? Now they did that somewhat last night, but you can't have another performance as you did last year when you go get killed by Texas A&M in the NCAA tournament. And they don't, when Jawan Gary and Bryce Williams are on, they're a really tough team to put down. But when one of them two are off, I don't like Nebraska's chances. Both of them have to play well. Connor Essegian has to hit some threes, and that's you got to put all those together. And they finally bench Braxton Mia, who was just a waste of space in my opinion. He's 7'1" and doesn't jump. But lastly, before we close out for today, Nebraska's men's and or Nebraska's softball team and baseball team are about to start the season. The Husker softball team opens up the season on Thursday against Tennessee, who's ranked number 6 in the nation. The Huskers are coming in at number 19th. Jordan Ball is healthy, ready to go after suffering a torn ACL last year. And I think that they got some transfers coming in, and I think that Nebraska softball has a real good potential to make a good run.
That would be good. The gal from I think the transfer from Oklahoma that you're speaking of. There was quite a bit of hype out her last year, but the injury kind of hosed that team up.
Well, for Ball, she had a .99 ERA in 288 innings pitched for Oklahoma.
Wow.
Yeah, she was the MVP of the 2023 College World Series. She won back-to-back national championships for the Sooners from 2022 to 2023. I mean, Oklahoma's won the last four, Omaha's powerhouse, but she was their best player. But she's from Papillion and wanted to come home. She's talking about that in her press conference on Saturday, how she learned a lot from being injured and how it was almost it was a blessing because she felt that she had all this pressure and athletes do that nowadays, but then she realized she can kind of cut loose, still keep the pressure on, but she doesn't have to carry the whole team.
That's good. Gives her another year of maturity.
Yeah, no, and then Nebraska baseball, they'll open up February 14th against UC Irvine, and they're preseason ranked number 24. They got on the pitching staff, Mason McConaughey is looking to be the ace. He was solid last year, looking to take the next step. You got Jackson Brockett, who threw a no-hitter last year against Kansas State. He's just too inconsistent. If he can become more consistent on the mound, I think that he's going to be one of their better pitchers. And then you also have Ty Horn with a lot of potential. And then bringing in Cale Frost from South Dakota State. He hit 21 home runs last year. So you're getting some power along with Gabe Swanson in the outfield.
Well, it'd be fun to make the trip to Omaha this year, wouldn't it?
I think that Nebraska or baseball and softball has potential for both of them to go. I think people should be excited for Nebraska spring sports. Um, it's pretty disappointing that Nebraska hasn't made the College World Series since 2005 when you have the World Series in Omaha. It really is.
Yeah, and I'd like to go.
But
You and I can make that trip.
for sure, I'll be covering it.
Got it.
But anyway, any last remarks before we close it out?
Uh, no, let's make sure we give some support to the women's basketball team.
Yeah, the women's basketball team's been on a roll as well, and they're Britt Prince, the true freshman from Elkhorn North, is really coming to her own, and the Huskers, I believe they just lost the other night to, I think it was Maryland, but they'll be in the NCAA tournament. They got a good team. Alexis Markowski is a senior,
She's quite a gal.
but anyway, um, I guess with all the breaking news with Nebraska, you can't really get around it. So we'll be having another show to discuss whatever unfolds next week with our spin on it. But anyway, thank you all for listening. Be sure to shoot us a comment and go be great.